Don't touch my counter with those filthy ghetto hands, boy. Nurse Janet Williams shoved Marcus Thompson's chest with both palms, sending him stumbling backward into a metal chair that screeched across Mercy General's emergency room floor. His insurance card scattered from his grip, landing face up beside a puddle of spilled coffee. 28-year-old Marcus straightened his faded hoodie, meeting Janet's glare with quiet dignity. The packed waiting room at 2:30 a.m. had gone dead silent. Phone cameras emerged from shadows. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," while another person started recording. "Ma'am, I'm having chest pains and I'm having attitude problems from people like you." Janet crossed her arms, voice projecting to ensure every witness heard. "Medicaid trash can wait until morning." Marcus pulled out his private insurance card again, hands steady despite the throbbing in his ribs. Have you ever been judged so completely wrong that the person doing it was about to lose everything they'd worked for? The digital clock above the nurse station glowed red. 2:32 a.m. 8 minutes until shift change. Marcus bent down to retrieve his insurance card from the coffee puddle, water dripping from the plastic as he approached Janet's station again. His movements stayed deliberately calm, controlled. Behind him, a woman named Sarah Carter had started live streaming on TikTok, whispering to her phone, "Y'all need to see this racism happening right now at Mercy General. Ma'am, this is my private insurance through..." Probably stolen. Janet didn't even glance at the card. She turned to her colleague, speaking loud enough for the entire waiting room to hear. "We get his type all night. Fake cards, drug seekers, violent when they don't get their way." The accusation hit like a physical blow. Marcus's jaw tightened, but his voice remained level. "I'm not seeking drugs. I'm having chest pains after working out and..." Working out? Janet's laugh was sharp, cruel. "Right, in those dirty clothes? More like running from the cops." Sarah's live stream viewer count jumped from 12 to 47. Comments started flooding. "This is disgusting," and "Get his badge number," and "Call the news." Janet leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, studying Marcus like he was something unpleasant stuck to her shoe. "Look, Medicaid boy, real emergencies only. Heart attacks, strokes, actual sick people, not ghetto boys looking for pills. I have Blue Cross Blue Shield premium coverage." Marcus placed the damp card on the counter. "The same insurance your doctors probably carry." "Sure you do." Without looking, Janet swept the card off the counter again with her clipboard. It landed near a trash can. "Even if it's real, which I doubt, people like you abuse the system. Take up beds that working Americans need." The elderly black man in the corner wheelchair shook his head slowly. A young white mother covered her child's ears and moved to a different seat. The Hispanic security guard, Luis Morales, shifted uncomfortably by the entrance but stayed silent. 2:34 a.m., 6 minutes to shift change. Marcus retrieved his card again. This time he noticed something. A first-class boarding pass from his flight yesterday stuck to the corner. JFK to LAX, seat 2A. He carefully peeled it off and tucked it back into his wallet, along with what looked like an expensive watch barely visible under his hoodie sleeve. "Listen here, boy." Janet stood up, pointing a manicured finger at his chest. "I don't know what kind of attitude you caught on the street, but this is a hospital. We have standards, we have protocols, and we don't jump through hoops for every wannabe gangster who walks in here demanding special treatment." Sarah's stream hit 200 viewers. Someone had shared it to Facebook. The hashtag #MercyGeneralRacism was starting to appear in the comments. "I'm not demanding special treatment." Marcus's voice stayed steady, professional even. "I'm asking for the same medical care you'd give anyone else with chest pains and valid insurance. Nobody else comes in here at 2:30 a.m. dressed like they just robbed somebody." Janet's voice carried across the waiting room, performing for her audience. "Anyone else doesn't have that look in their eyes. I've been doing this for 15 years. I know trouble when I see it." Marcus's phone buzzed. The screen lit up briefly with notifications from Dr. Patricia Thompson and Legal Team Urgent and board meeting reminder. He silenced it quickly, but not before Luis, the security guard, caught a glimpse of the expensive phone case. 2:35 a.m., 5 minutes. "Ma'am, may I speak with your supervisor?" "I am the supervisor on duty." The lie came easily. Janet gestured toward the hallway. "And my supervisor would tell you the same thing. Go to the free clinic in Madison. They're equipped for your demographic." The word hung in the air like smoke from a fire. Several people in the waiting room pulled out their phones. The live stream count hit 350. Marcus opened his wallet to put away his insurance card. For just a moment, a black American Express Centurion card was visible, the kind most people never see in person. Luis noticed. So did the elderly man in the wheelchair, who suddenly sat up straighter. "Your demographic." Marcus repeated the words quietly, as if tasting them. "What demographic is that exactly?" Janet realized she'd gone too far, but pride wouldn't let her back down. "You know what I mean." "No, ma'am, I don't." "Could you be more specific about these cameras?" Her face flushed red. The live stream was approaching 500 viewers now, with people sharing it across multiple platforms. Someone had already screenshotted her name badge and was posting it on Twitter. 2:37 a.m., 3 minutes to shift change. "Look, I don't have time for games." Janet sat back down, dismissing him with a wave. "Wait until morning shift or go somewhere else. Those are your options." Marcus stood there for a moment, studying her face. Then he pulled his phone back out and scrolled to a specific contact. The screen showed Mom's office, emergency line for anyone watching closely. "Actually," he said quietly, "I think there might be a third option." Before Marcus could dial, a new voice cut through the tension. "What's the holdup here, Janet?" Supervisor Nancy Klein emerged from the back office, coffee mug in hand, surveying the scene with practiced authority. Her scrubs were pristine, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun that screamed management. Behind her, floor manager Tom Rodriguez appeared, clipboard tucked under his arm. Sarah's live stream was now approaching 800 viewers. Comments flooded the screen. "Someone call the news! This is 2025, not 1965. Get their names!" The hashtag Hail Mercy General Racism was trending locally. "Medicaid case trying to jump the line," Janet explained, not bothering to lower her voice. "Getting aggressive when I told him to wait his turn." Nancy didn't even look at Marcus before responding. "Process him when we have time." She turned her back dismissively. "We've got real patients waiting." Marcus felt the familiar burn of being discussed like an object. "Excuse me, ma'am. I haven't been aggressive. I'm simply asking to be seen for chest pains with valid private insurance." Nancy turned around slowly, eyeing his hoodie and jeans with obvious distaste. "Private insurance?" Her tone suggested he'd claimed to be royalty. "Let me see it." Marcus held up his Blue Cross card. Nancy barely glanced at it. "Probably expired, or stolen." She shrugged. "Tom, call security. We don't need troublemakers disrupting our ER." "I'm not a troublemaker." Marcus's voice remained steady, but there was steel underneath now. "I'm a patient in pain requesting medical care that my insurance covers." Tom Rodriguez keyed his radio. "Security to triage. Non-emergency." The elderly black man in the wheelchair spoke up for the first time. "This is wrong. Dead wrong. That boy ain't done nothing but try to get help." Janet whirled on him. "Sir, please don't interfere with hospital operations." "Hospital operations?" The old man's voice carried decades of experience with this exact situation. "That's what we call it now?" 2:38 a.m. 2 minutes to shift change. Security guard Mike Santos approached, hand resting casually on his radio. He was built like a bouncer, with arms that strained his uniform sleeves. "Are we having problems here?" "This gentleman needs to leave," Nancy explained, gesturing at Marcus like he wasn't standing right there. "He's being disruptive." Mike studied Marcus, taking in the hoodie, the worn jeans, the tired eyes. His assessment was quick and dismissive. "All right, buddy, time to go." "Officer, I'm a patient seeking emergency medical care." Marcus's tone was respectful but firm. "I haven't raised my voice, haven't threatened anyone, and I have valid insurance. What law am I breaking by requesting treatment?" The question hung in the air. Mike's hand moved closer to his belt. Sarah's stream hit 1,200 viewers. Someone had shared it on Reddit. The comments were getting angrier. "Sue them all! This is criminal! Hospital administration needs to see this." "Sir, you're causing a disturbance," Mike said, stepping closer. "I'm asking you to leave voluntarily." "What disturbance?" Marcus gestured around the waiting room. "Everyone was quiet until you arrived." The young white mother with the child leaned over to her friend, whispering loud enough to be heard. "This is awful. He's just trying to get help." Janet overheard and spun around. "Ma'am, this doesn't concern you." "It concerns all of us," the mother replied, pulling out her own phone to record. "This is discrimination, plain and simple." Now there were multiple phones recording. A teenage Hispanic girl had started her own Instagram Live. An older white man was filming from behind a magazine. The digital documentation was multiplying exponentially. Hospital Administrator Barbara Hayes chose that moment to make her entrance, drawn by the commotion. She was 50-something, with steel-gray hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to being the most important person in any room. "What's going on out here?" Her voice cut through the tension like a scalpel. "I can hear this from my office." Janet launched into her version immediately. "Ma'am, this individual has been harassing staff, demanding immediate treatment, claiming to have insurance we can't verify." Barbara looked Marcus up and down, her expression making her conclusions clear. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're disrupting our emergency department." "Before you do that," Marcus said quietly, "may I ask your full name and title?" The specificity of the question caught Barbara off guard. "Why?" "For the incident report." Barbara's eyes narrowed. "What incident report?" Marcus gestured around the room. "The one documenting how your staff refused emergency medical treatment to an insured patient based on his appearance." "We didn't refuse anything. We asked you to wait. After calling me ghetto boy, suggesting I stole my insurance card, and telling me to go to a free clinic because of my demographic." Marcus's voice never rose above conversational level, but somehow it carried to every corner of the waiting room. The live stream viewers had passed 1,500. Someone had tagged the local news stations. Screenshots of the hospital staff were being shared across platforms with their names visible. Barbara realized they were being recorded by multiple people. "Everyone needs to stop filming on hospital property." "Actually," said the elderly man in the wheelchair, "this is a public space. We got a right to film." A new voice joined the conversation. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the night shift attending physician, had emerged from the treatment area. She looked exhausted, her scrubs wrinkled from a long shift. "What's all the noise about?" She noticed the phones, the crowd, the tension. "Is there a medical emergency?" "Just removing a disruptive individual," Barbara explained quickly. Dr. Walsh looked at Marcus. "Are you having a medical emergency, sir?" "Chest pains, shortness of breath. I started about an hour ago during exercise." Her demeanor shifted immediately. "Have you taken any medications? Any history of cardiac issues?" "No medications, no cardiac history. But the pain is getting worse." Dr. Walsh turned to Janet with visible irritation. "Why isn't he in triage?" Janet fumbled. We couldn't verify his insurance." "So we let him die in the waiting room while we verify paperwork?" Dr. Walsh's tone was sharp. "That's not how emergency medicine works." The confrontation was drawing more attention. Other patients were openly staring. The cleaning lady, Maria Santos, had stopped her work entirely and was watching with concern. Luis, The security guard, who'd been silent, looked increasingly uncomfortable. 2:39 a.m., 1 minute to shift change. Barbara Hayes stepped forward, reasserting her authority. "Dr. Walsh, I'll handle this administrative matter. Please return to your patients." "This isn't administrative. This is medical and potentially legal." Dr. Walsh looked around the room, taking in the cameras, the crowd, the obvious tension. "What exactly happened here?" The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Marcus, waiting to see if he would escalate or back down. Marcus pulled out his phone again, scrolling to that same contact. "Mom's office. Emergency line." "Actually, doctor," he said quietly, "I think my mother would like to hear your professional opinion about tonight's administrative policies." Barbara Hayes went very still. "Your mother?" Marcus's finger hovered over the call button. "Dr. Patricia Thompson, CEO of Thompson Healthcare Systems." The color drained from Barbara's face. Nancy Klein dropped her coffee mug, the ceramic shattering on the floor. Janet's mouth fell open. The live stream exploded with comments as viewers realized what they'd just witnessed. "Oh my God! Plot twist! The boss's son!" Sarah whispered into her phone. "Y'all, this just got very interesting." The emergency room had never been this quiet. Even the usual hum of medical equipment seemed muted as every eye focused on Marcus Thompson and the phone in his hand. Barbara Hayes found her voice first, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Thompson? As in Dr. Patricia Thompson?" Marcus nodded calmly. "CEO and president of Thompson Healthcare Systems, your parent company." The words hit the assembled staff like a physical blow. Nancy Klein's face went chalk white. Janet Williams began backing away from the nurse's station as if it might explode. Tom Rodriguez stared at his clipboard like it contained his resignation letter. Sarah's live stream had exploded to over 2,500 viewers. The comment section was moving too fast to read. "Holy shit! This is better than Netflix! The CEO's son! They're so fired!" Marcus pressed the call button. "Thompson Healthcare Systems, executive line. This is Amanda." The voice was crisp, professional, even at 2:40 a.m. "Hi, Amanda. This is Marcus. Is my mother available?" "Marcus, are you all right?" "She's in the conference room reviewing the quarterly reports. Let me patch you through immediately." The staff exchanged terrified glances. Security guard Mike Santos had unconsciously stepped several feet back. Dr. Walsh watched the scene with fascination and growing understanding. "Mom?" Marcus's voice carried clearly in the silence. "I'm at Mercy General seeking medical treatment." Even through the phone's speaker, Dr. Patricia Thompson's voice commanded attention. "Are you hurt? What happened?" "I'm fine. Chest pains from working out. But I wanted you to hear about the customer service experience I've had tonight." There was a pause. When Patricia Thompson spoke again, her tone had shifted to something that made seasoned executives nervous. "Put me on speaker." Marcus complied. His mother's voice filled the emergency room. "Good morning. This is Dr. Patricia Thompson, CEO of Thompson Healthcare Systems. To whom am I speaking?" Barbara Hayes stepped forward on unsteady legs. "Dr. Thompson, this is Barbara Hayes, hospital administrator at Mercy General. We had no idea." "No idea of what, Ms. Hayes?" The question hung like a sword. Barbara struggled for words that wouldn't incriminate her further. Janet Williams chose that moment to attempt damage control. "Dr. Thompson, there's been a misunderstanding. I was just following protocol. What's your name and position?" "Janet Williams, RN, night shift triage." "Ms. Williams, what protocol requires you to call patients ghetto boys and tell them to take their filthy hands off hospital property?" The silence was deafening. Sarah's live stream viewers had passed 3,000. Someone had shared it to Twitter, where #MercyGeneralRacism was now trending nationally. Patricia's voice continued, measured and deadly calm. "What protocol suggests patients should visit free clinics based on their demographic?" Nancy Klein tried to interject. Dr. Thompson, I'm Nancy Klein, night supervisor. We were simply trying to manage patient flow. By physically shoving my son and refusing to process his private insurance? The revelation that Marcus had been physically assaulted sent a new wave of outrage through the live stream comments. Dr. Walsh's expression darkened considerably. Marcus opened his wallet, revealing the contents to the room. The black American Express Centurion card caught the fluorescent light. The first-class boarding pass was visible. A business card identifying him as Marcus Thompson, VP Strategic Operations, Thompson Healthcare Systems, lay on top. Jesus Christ, whispered Tom Rodriguez, immediately regretting the profanity. Patricia's voice cut through the tension. Marcus, are you receiving appropriate medical care now? Dr. Walsh just arrived and offered to examine me. Dr. Walsh, put her on the line. Dr. Jennifer Walsh approached the phone cautiously. This is Dr. Walsh, attending physician. Doctor, what's your assessment of tonight's events? Dr. Walsh looked around the room at her colleagues, then made her choice. Frankly, Dr. Thompson, what I witnessed was discriminatory treatment of your son based solely on his appearance. He presented with cardiac symptoms and valid insurance, and was refused triage for non-medical reasons. Thank you for your honesty, Doctor. How long have you been at Mercy General? 8 years. Have you observed similar incidents before? Dr. Walsh hesitated, then answered truthfully. Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, yes. The live stream erupted. Viewers were screenshotting everything, sharing across platforms. Local news stations were being tagged repeatedly. The story was going viral in real time. Marcus pulled out a small leather portfolio from his backpack. The expensive craftsmanship was now obvious to everyone watching. Inside were hospital performance reports, board meeting agendas, and budget analyses. I've been reviewing Mercy General's operational data, he said quietly. Patient satisfaction scores, demographic service patterns, complaint logs. Barbara Hayes looked like she might faint. The patterns are interesting, Marcus continued. Statistically significant variations in treatment times, pain management protocols, and insurance processing based on patient zip codes and demographics. Nancy Klein started crying silently. The weight of the situation was crushing down on everyone involved. Patricia's voice returned to the speaker. Marcus, I'm leaving the office now. I'll be there in 20 minutes with legal counsel and our chief operating officer. The threat was clear. This wasn't just about tonight anymore. Barbara Hayes, Patricia continued, I want every staff member who interacted with my son tonight to remain on the premises. No one leaves until we've had a thorough discussion. Dr. Thompson, please, we can resolve this. This will be resolved. The question is whether Mercy General continues operating after tonight, or whether we relocate our services to a facility that better represents our values. The financial implications hit like a sledgehammer. Mercy General employed 340 people. The hospital was the largest employer in the district. Closure would devastate the local economy. Luis, the security guard who'd been silent all night, finally spoke up. Dr. Thompson, this is Luis Morales, security. I want you to know that not everyone here agrees with what happened tonight. Some of us, we wanted to speak up. Thank you, Mr. Morales. I'll want to speak with you separately. Marcus noticed Maria Santos, the cleaning lady, watching from behind her cart. Their eyes met, and she nodded with quiet dignity. She'd seen everything. She'd remember everything. The teenage girl who'd been live streaming on Instagram whispered to her phone, "This is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life." The elderly black man in the wheelchair rolled forward slightly. Son, he said to Marcus, you handled yourself with more dignity than they deserved. Your mama raised you right. Marcus smiled for the first time all night. Thank you, sir. Sarah's TikTok live stream had reached 4,200 viewers. The story was spreading faster than hospital staff could process what was happening to them. Patricia's voice came through the speaker one final time before she hung up. 20 minutes, people. I suggest you use that time to consider how you want this conversation to go. The line went dead. Marcus slipped his phone back into his pocket and looked around the room. Janet Williams was nowhere to be seen. She'd disappeared during the phone call. Barbara Hayes was staring at the floor. Nancy Klein was still crying. Dr. Walsh approached him. Mr. Thompson, would you like me to examine you now? Actually, Doctor, I think I'll wait for my mother. But thank you for being the only person tonight who remembered that medicine is supposed to be about helping people. 18 minutes until the CEO arrives. The real reckoning was about to begin. Exactly 18 minutes later, the automatic doors of Mercy General's emergency entrance slid open with unusual authority. Dr. Patricia Thompson entered like a force of nature, immaculately dressed in a charcoal business suit despite the early hour, flanked by two equally professional figures. The emergency room, which had been buzzing with nervous energy, fell completely silent. "Good morning," Patricia said, her voice carrying the kind of command presence that made hospital boards nervous and competitors respectful. "I'm Dr. Patricia Thompson, CEO and President of Thompson Healthcare Systems." She gestured to her companions. "This is David Kim, our Chief Legal Counsel, and Jennifer Martinez, Chief Operating Officer." David Kim was already photographing the scene with professional precision, documenting everything from staff positions to the live stream setup that Sarah Carter was still broadcasting to her now 5,800 viewers. Jennifer Martinez carried a tablet and briefcase, her expression suggesting she'd seen corporate disasters before and knew exactly how they played out. Patricia surveyed the waiting room with the analytical eye of someone who'd built a healthcare empire from scratch. Her gaze took in the broken coffee mug still scattered on the floor, the nervous staff clustering near the nurse's station, and most importantly, her son sitting calmly in a plastic chair. "Marcus?" Her tone was softer now, maternal concern breaking through the executive facade. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Mom. Just educational evening." Patricia's smile was sharp as surgical steel. "I'm sure it was." She turned her attention to the assembled hospital staff. Barbara Hayes stepped forward, attempting to salvage what was clearly an unsalvageable situation. "Dr. Thompson, I want to apologize for any miscommunication tonight. We can certainly—" "Ms. Hayes," Patricia's voice cut clean. "Before we discuss what you can certainly do, let's review what you already did." David Kim opened his briefcase, extracting a tablet and several folders. "We've been monitoring the social media documentation of tonight's events. Multiple live streams, dozens of recorded videos, thousands of screenshots." Jennifer Martinez consulted her tablet. "Current metrics: 47,000 shares across platforms, trending in 12 major markets, picked up by 3 news organizations." Patricia nodded. "So we're not dealing with a private miscommunication, Ms. Hayes. We're dealing with a public relations catastrophe that reflects directly on Thompson Healthcare System's reputation and values." She began walking slowly through the waiting room, her heels clicking on the linoleum with metronomic precision. "Thompson Healthcare Systems operates 47 hospitals across 12 states. Annual revenue, $8.2 billion. We employ 89,000 people and serve 2.3 million patients annually." Barbara Hayes and Nancy Klein exchanged terrified glances. Mercy General's annual revenue represents approximately $340 million. That's 4.1% of our total network revenue. Patricia stopped in front of the nurse's station. "Significant to you. Replaceable to us." The mathematical brutality of the statement hit like a physical blow. David Kim stepped forward with legal precision. "Ms. Hayes, are you familiar with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964? Yes, we have compliance training. Section 2000D specifically prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in programs receiving federal financial assistance. Mercy General receives approximately $23.7 million annually in Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements." Jennifer Martinez added, Violation of Title VI can result in immediate suspension of all federal funding. That represents 68% of Mercy General's revenue stream. Patricia continued her slow circuit of the waiting room. Where is Ms. Janet Williams? The question hung in the air. Nancy Klein cleared her throat nervously. She went home. Shift change. She fled, Patricia corrected. David, add that to our documentation. Abandoning the scene of a civil rights violation suggests consciousness of guilt. Dr. Walsh, who had been observing silently, stepped forward. Dr. Thompson, I want to be clear that not all staff participated in or agreed with tonight's treatment of your son. Patricia studied to be an attending physician. Dr. Walsh, correct? How long have you worked at Mercy General? 8 years. Have you witnessed similar incidents of discriminatory treatment? Dr. Walsh hesitated, then chose honesty. Yes. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon. Usually it's more subtle, but the patterns are there. Longer wait times for certain demographics, different pain management protocols, assumption-based triage decisions. Thank you for your candor. That will be noted in your favor. Marcus opened his portfolio, extracting several printed reports. Mom, I brought some of Mercy General's operational data. The patterns Dr. Walsh mentioned are statistically significant. He spread the papers on a nearby table. Average emergency department wait times by patient zip code show a variation of up to 340% for the same triage categories. Pain medication administration rates vary by 280% based on demographic profiles. Insurance verification processes average 23 minutes for patients from certain neighborhoods, 4 minutes for others. The data was damning. Jennifer Martinez photographed each page methodically. Patricia turned to face Barbara Hayes directly. Ms. Hayes, how do you explain these statistical anomalies? We don't intentionally discriminate. If there are patterns, they might be due to operational factors. Operational factors. Patricia repeated the phrase like she was examining a particularly unpleasant medical specimen. David, what's the legal term for operational factors that result in racially disparate treatment? Systemic discrimination under Section 1983 of the Civil Rights Act. Personal liability for damages, injunctive relief, and attorney fees. Barbara Hayes looked like she might collapse. Patricia continued her methodical destruction. Ms. Hayes, what's Mercy General's current patient satisfaction rating? We're working to improve. Jennifer Martinez consulted her tablet. 2.1 out of 5 stars. Industry average is 3.8. Mercy General ranks 847th out of 923 hospitals in the region. And tonight's events, broadcast live to thousands of viewers, will improve those numbers exactly? The rhetorical question needed no answer. Nancy Klein attempted to speak. Dr. Thompson, please understand, we were trying to manage patient flow efficiently. By physically assaulting my son? Patricia's voice remained level, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. By calling him ghetto boy and telling him to remove his filthy hands from hospital property? The live stream comments were exploding with outrage and disbelief. Sarah Carter's viewer count had passed 7,000. Patricia approached the nurses' station where the confrontation had begun. This counter, where Ms. Williams swept my son's insurance card to the floor twice, where she suggested he'd stolen his coverage, where she diagnosed him as a drug seeker before any medical evaluation. She turned back to the assembled staff. I built Thompson Healthcare Systems on a simple principle. Every patient deserves dignity, respect, and quality care regardless of their appearance, background, or ability to pay. Her voice began to rise slightly, the controlled fury finally beginning to show. What happened here tonight represents the exact opposite of everything we stand for. David Kim opened another folder. Dr. Thompson, we have documentation of similar incidents at Mercy General dating back 18 months. 12 formal complaints, 37 informal reports, multiple social media incidents. 18 months of warnings ignored, Patricia said. 18 months of patients mistreated. 18 months of our company values being corrupted by staff who see healthcare as a privilege to be rationed rather than a right to be protected. She stopped in the center of the room, commanding everyone's attention. So here's what's going to happen. Ms. Hayes, you have 72 hours to provide me with a comprehensive plan for addressing systemic discrimination at Mercy General. The plan will include immediate personnel actions, mandatory bias training for all staff, implementation of patient advocacy programs, and transparent reporting mechanisms. Barbara Hayes nodded frantically. Yes, absolutely, we can— I'm not finished. Patricia's voice cut like a scalpel. The alternative is immediate review of Mercy General's operational license by our board of directors. Hospital closure is not uncommon in our industry when facilities fail to meet corporate standards. The financial devastation of closure hung over everyone. 340 jobs, local economic impact, community health services eliminated. Jennifer Martinez provided the stark mathematics. Closure would require staff redeployment to other facilities. Background checks and performance reviews would determine eligibility. Not all current employees would qualify for transfer. The message was clear. Some careers would end regardless of the hospital's fate. Luis Morales, the security guard who had spoken up earlier, stepped forward. Dr. Thompson, some of us wanted to intervene tonight. We were afraid of losing our jobs if we contradicted supervisors. Patricia studied him. Mr. Morales, fear of retaliation for doing the right thing suggests a toxic workplace culture. That ends now. She addressed the room. Effective immediately, any employee who witnesses discriminatory treatment and fails to report it will be subject to termination. Any employee who retaliates against whistleblowers will face immediate dismissal and legal action. Marcus stood up, joining his mother in the center of the room. What happened to me tonight was wrong. But more importantly, it represents what's been happening to other people who don't have the leverage I have. That's the real problem we need to solve. Patricia smiled at her son with obvious pride. Exactly. This isn't about revenge. It's about preventing future victims. She turned back to the staff. 72 hours, Ms. Hayes. Comprehensive plan. No excuses, no delays, no half measures. The corporate showdown was complete. Now comes the consequences. 71 hours and 43 minutes later, Dr. Patricia Thompson's Bentley pulled into the executive parking space at Mercy General Hospital. The morning sun cast long shadows across the emergency department entrance where Marcus had been humiliated just 3 days earlier. The transformation was already visible. A large banner hung across the hospital's main entrance. Thompson Healthcare Systems, Dignity First Initiative. News vans from 3 local stations crowded the visitor parking lot, their satellite dishes extended toward a clear November sky. Inside the executive conference room, Barbara Hayes sat at the polished mahogany table with a thick folder marked Comprehensive Discrimination Prevention Plan, Mercy General Hospital. Her hands trembled slightly as she organized the documents one final time. The door opened and Patricia entered with her usual commanding presence, followed by David Kim, Jennifer Martinez, and, surprisingly, Marcus. All 4 carried tablets and briefcases, suggesting this was not merely a courtesy review. Ms. Hayes? Patricia's greeting was cordially professional, neither warm nor hostile. I trust you've had adequate time to prepare. Yes, Dr. Thompson. We've developed a comprehensive response that addresses all the issues raised during our previous meeting. Patricia took her seat at the head of the table. Before we review your plan, let's discuss the immediate personnel actions you've implemented. Barbara opened her folder with visible nervousness. Janet Williams was terminated for patient abuse and violation of civil rights policies. Her nursing license review has been initiated with the state board. David Kim made notes on his tablet. Severance package? Voided due to termination for cause. She's also been permanently barred from all Thompson healthcare facilities. Nancy Klein? Suspended without pay for 90 days. She's enrolled in our new 40-hour bias training program and will be required to complete an additional 20 hours of community service with local civil rights organizations. Jennifer Martinez consulted her tablet. What about supervisory responsibilities upon return? Demotion to staff nurse. No supervisory duties for a minimum of 2 years, subject to performance review. Marcus spoke for the first time. What about the other staff members who witnessed the incident? Barbara turned to a different page. Tom Rodriguez and Mike Santos received written reprimands and are completing the bias training program. Luis Morales, the security guard who spoke up, has been promoted to patient advocacy coordinator. Patricia's expression showed the first hint of approval. Interesting. Reward the courage, punish the complicity. Exactly. We're also recognizing Maria Santos, the cleaning staff member who witnessed everything. We've established a college scholarship fund for her daughter. The room fell silent as Patricia absorbed the information. After a long moment, she nodded. Adequate. Now let's review your systemic changes. Barbara's confidence grew slightly. We've implemented what we're calling Marcus's Law, a comprehensive patient dignity protocol. She slid a bound document across the table. Every patient must be addressed respectfully regardless of appearance. Insurance verification cannot exceed 5 minutes without documented medical justification. Zero tolerance policy for discriminatory language. David Kim flipped through the pages. Enforcement mechanisms? Digital accountability system. We've installed the Dignity Watch application on all workstations. Patients can report discrimination immediately through QR codes posted throughout the facility. Marcus leaned forward with interest. Real-time reporting. Yes. Anonymous if necessary. Reports go directly to administration, our new chief equity officer, and your legal team simultaneously. Jennifer Martinez made notes. Chief equity officer? Barbara's nervousness returned. Dr. Keisha Williams, former civil rights attorney, 15 years of healthcare discrimination litigation. She started Monday. Patricia's eyebrows rose slightly. Salary? $180,000 annually, plus benefits. Direct report to hospital administration with authority to investigate and discipline. Budget for equity programs? $2.3 million annually. Covers bias training, patient advocacy, community outreach, and discrimination prevention technology. The numbers were substantial. Patricia exchanged glances with her team. Barbara continued, gaining momentum. We've restructured our training requirements. Every employee must complete 40 hours of bias recognition training annually. Virtual reality scenarios let staff experience discrimination from the patient perspective. Marcus showed genuine interest. VR training? Staff wear headsets and experience seeking medical care while facing the same discrimination they might unconsciously display. The psychological impact is significant. David Kim looked up from his notes. Legal compliance? Full Title VI audit completed. Federal Regulations Compliance Officer hired. Monthly civil rights reviews with documented corrective actions. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Community oversight? 7-member Community Health Equity Board, local patients, religious leaders, civil rights activists. They review discrimination reports quarterly and can recommend personnel actions. Jennifer Martinez consulted her tablet. Financial transparency? Barbara turned to another section. Public quarterly reports on discrimination incidents, resolution times, and program costs. Complete transparency. The room fell quiet as Patricia's team absorbed the scope of the reforms. After several minutes, Patricia spoke. Impressive on paper, Ms. Hayes, but implementation determines success. What's your timeline? The Dignity Watch system is already active. Bias training begins next week for all 340 employees. The Community Oversight Board meets for the first time Thursday. Marcus pulled out his own tablet. What about the statistical disparities we identified? Treatment time variations by zip code, pain management protocols by demographic? Barbara had clearly prepared for this question. We've implemented algorithmic monitoring. Computer systems flag unusual patterns automatically. Any statistical variation above 10% triggers immediate review. And the results? 3 nurses have been identified for additional training. 2 doctors are under review for prescription patterns. The system works. Patricia stood and walked to the conference room window, looking down at the emergency department where everything had started. Ms. Hayes, these reforms are comprehensive, but Mercy General's reputation has been severely damaged. Barbara's face fell. Dr. Thompson, we understand the gravity. I'm not finished. Patricia turned back to face the room. Mercy General will become the flagship hospital for bias prevention in our network. These policies will be implemented system-wide across all 47 hospitals. Barbara's expression shifted from fear to confusion to hope. Furthermore, Mercy General will host our annual Healthcare Equity Conference. Medical schools will study your transformation as a case study in institutional change. Marcus smiled. Turn the scandal into leadership? Exactly. Use the spotlight for education rather than hiding from it. David Kim closed his folder. Legal agrees. Proactive reform demonstrates good faith and reduces liability exposure. Jennifer Martinez added, financially, this positions Thompson Healthcare as the industry leader in patient rights. Patricia returned to her seat. Ms. Hayes, I'm placing Mercy General on probationary status for 18 months. Monthly reviews, quarterly audits, transparent reporting. Success means full rehabilitation. Failure means closure. Barbara nodded vigorously. We won't fail, Dr. Thompson. What happened to Marcus? It opened our eyes to problems we should have addressed years ago. Marcus spoke quietly. The goal isn't punishment, Ms. Hayes. It's prevention. Making sure no other patient experiences what I did. Patricia's pride in her son was visible. Wisdom beyond his years. She gathered her materials. Dr. Williams, your Chief Equity Officer, will report monthly to our corporate headquarters. Any discrimination incident will trigger immediate review. Standing to leave, Patricia paused at the door. Ms. Hayes, 3 months ago, Mercy General was a liability to our network. Today it has the potential to become our greatest asset. The transformation was remarkable, from scandal to leadership in 72 hours. As they left the conference room, Marcus turned to his mother. Think it'll work? Patricia smiled. Fear motivated the changes. Pride will sustain them. Mercy General won't want to lose their new status as industry leaders. The resolution was complete, but the real test would come in the months ahead. 6 months after that transformative night at Mercy General, Marcus Thompson stood in the same emergency room where his journey had begun. But everything had changed. The walls now displayed patient rights posters in 7 languages, QR codes linked to the Dignity Watch reporting system. A digital monitor showed real-time patient satisfaction scores, 4.3 out of 5 stars, up from the devastating 2.1 rating that had once defined this place. Mr. Thompson? A young black nurse approached with genuine warmth. Dr. Williams is ready for your interview. Marcus smiled. The nurse wore a badge reading Dignity Champion, part of the peer recognition program that had emerged from the reforms. Thank you, Denise. How's the new system working? Ooh, life-changing, she said without hesitation. Patients feel heard. Staff feel accountable. It's like working in a completely different hospital. Dr. Keisha Williams, the Chief Equity Officer, greeted Marcus in her office with professional enthusiasm. The walls displayed charts showing dramatic improvements. Discrimination reports down 89%, patient satisfaction up 112%. Staff diversity in leadership roles increased by 41%. Marcus, I wanted to thank you personally, she said, settling behind her desk. What you endured that night, and how you handled it, created a blueprint for change that's spreading across the entire healthcare industry. Marcus reviewed the data on her screen. The numbers are impressive. But what about the human impact? Dr. Williams pulled up a different display. We've documented over 3,400 discrimination incidents reported and resolved across all 47 Thompson Healthcare facilities. Each one represents a patient who received dignity instead of dismissal. The scope was staggering. Marcus's single night of humiliation had generated a wave of institutional change affecting millions of patients nationwide. The ripple effect extends beyond our network, Dr. Williams continued. 23 other hospital systems have implemented similar programs. Medical schools are teaching bias recognition as a core curriculum requirement. State legislators in 6 states have introduced healthcare equity bills modeled on Marcus's law. Marcus walked to the window overlooking the emergency department. Below, he could see the same waiting room where Janet Williams had called him Ghetto Boy and swept his insurance card to the floor. Now it bustles with professional, respectful activity. "What happened to Janet?" he asked. "Blacklisted from healthcare. Her nursing license was permanently revoked after the state board review. She's working retail now." The consequences had been severe but fair. Actions had accountability. And Nancy Klein? Completed her bias training, community service, and probationary period. She's actually become one of our most effective advocates for patient dignity. Sometimes the deepest change comes from the deepest shame. Dr. Williams joined him at the window. "Your mother's leadership through this transformation has been remarkable. The board voted her Healthcare Executive of the Year." Marcus nodded with quiet pride. "She always said real power means protecting people who can't protect themselves." His phone buzzed with a notification from Sarah Carter's latest TikTok video. The college student who had live-streamed his humiliation that night now worked as a patient advocacy consultant, traveling to hospitals nationwide to share her perspective on digital accountability. Her latest video had 2.8 million views. 6 months later, how one night of filmed racism changed an entire industry. The comments were overwhelmingly positive. "This gives me hope for real change. Proof that standing up works. Marcus Thompson is a hero." Dr. Williams showed him another screen. "We track social media impact. The hashtag #MarcusLaw has been used over 450,000 times. Patient advocacy groups have formed in 89 cities. The conversation about healthcare discrimination has fundamentally shifted." Marcus felt the weight of unintended influence. "Sometimes I wonder if we pushed too hard. 340 people could have lost their jobs if Mom had chosen hospital closure. But they didn't. They kept their jobs and found their dignity. Luis Morales tells me this is the best workplace he's ever experienced. Maria Santos's daughter just received a full college scholarship. Dr. Walsh was promoted to Chief of Emergency Medicine. The human victories mattered most. Marcus, what you experienced that night was horrific, but your response, calm, strategic, focused on systematic change rather than personal revenge, that created something beautiful." Marcus's reflection was interrupted by a knock. Luis Morales, now patient advocacy coordinator, entered with obvious excitement. "Mr. Thompson, I wanted you to hear this personally. We just received notice that Mercy General has been selected as the National Model Hospital for Healthcare Equity by the Department of Health and Human Services." The recognition was unprecedented, from scandal to national leadership in 6 months. "What does that mean practically?" Marcus asked. "Federal funding for equity programs, congressional testimony opportunities, international delegations visiting to study our model. Mercy General becomes the template for healthcare justice nationwide." Marcus shook hands with Luis, remembering the security guard's courage in speaking up that night when others stayed silent. "You deserve this recognition, Luis. You found your voice when it mattered." "You taught me that dignity isn't negotiable," Luis replied. "Whether you're the CEO's son or the janitor's daughter, respect is a human right." As Luis left, Dr. Williams pulled up one final screen. "Marcus, I want to show you something special." The monitor displayed a real-time map of hospitals implementing Marcus's law across the United States. 47 Thompson Healthcare facilities glowed blue. 23 partner hospitals showed green. Dozens of others were marked yellow for implementation in progress. Over 200 hospitals now, potentially affecting 15 million patients annually. The change keeps expanding. Marcus studied the map with quiet amazement. All because Janet Williams couldn't see past her prejudices. All because you refused to let those prejudices define your response. Dr. Williams stood, extending her hand. Marcus, what's your next move? Law school? Business school? Your influence in healthcare equity could shape policy for decades. Marcus smiled, his decision already made. Actually, I'm starting medical school in the fall. Emergency medicine. Dr. Williams's expression shifted to deep respect. You're going back to where it all began. Someone needs to make sure the next person who walks into an ER looking like I did that night gets treated like a human being from the first moment. The circle would be complete. As Marcus prepared to leave, Dr. Williams offered final words. What you've accomplished proves that real power isn't about getting even. It's about getting better, not just for yourself, but for everyone who comes after you. Marcus walked through the emergency department one last time, past the Dignity Champion badges, the patient rights posters, the QR codes that had revolutionized accountability. Staff members nodded respectfully. Patients moved through triage efficiently and with evident comfort. Outside, he pulled out his phone and opened his camera. Time for his own social media message. 6 months ago, I was humiliated in this hospital because of how I looked. Today, it's a national model for patient dignity. Change is possible when good people refuse to stay silent. He tagged his location, added hashtags, hashtag Marcus Law, hashtag Healthcare, Equity, Dignity First, Systemic Change, Black Voices, Uncut. To everyone who's been dismissed, ignored, or mistreated in healthcare, your voice matters. Document what happens, report discrimination, demand better. And remember, the most powerful victories create systems that protect others from experiencing what you did. His finger hovered over the share button. Don't just get mad, get systematic. Don't just get even, get better. Don't just win once, change the game so others don't have to fight the same battle. He pressed share and walked toward his car, knowing the story would continue long after he was gone. Your turn to make a difference. Have you witnessed discrimination in healthcare? Share your story in the comments. Your experience could help someone else find their voice. Share this video if it opens your eyes to the power of strategic response over explosive reaction. Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut for more stories of quiet strength creating loud change. Because every Marcus's Law starts with someone brave enough to say, "This is wrong, and I'm going to make sure it never happens again."
The story you heard today wasn't cleaned up. It was told exactly as it happened. At Black Voices Uncut, we believe that's the only way truth can live. If you felt something, hit like, comment, and your reaction, and subscribe. Every week, we bring you voices that refuse to be silenced.